Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of the Redpower circuit tutorial. Today we're going to be hopefully covering the rest of the circuits that I didn't cover in the previous episode. Starting with this one right here. This is the Redstone, what is it actually called? Wireless transmitter and the wireless receiver. Okay, now they do pretty much exactly what you would expect them to do. They fit their name quite nicely. They wirelessly transmit redstone signal. So, as you can see, nothing in between the two. Nope. You know what? I'm kind of curious. Let's see if this works. No, nothing happens. And that's because our frequency is set to 0. If you right-click on the block, you'll get this GUI here, and you can use it in increments of 1, 10, 100, 1,000 to change the frequency you run at. But when you do that, you have to change the receiving end to the same frequency. So it runs pretty much just like a radio. So now if we flick the switch, now it works. Okay, now, I'm sure you're going to ask, how far does that work? Well, over here, and make note of the coordinates in the upper right-hand corner below the map, my z-axis is 1,000. So, way over here, I have a wireless transmitter set up on frequency 100 with a lever set to put power into it. Over here, I have a receiver set to frequency 101 set to output power to a piston. And way over here, with my z-axis being 0, I have a receiver set to frequency 100 which is set up to power a piston and also send a redstone signal this way to the 101 transmitter. So I end up with a signal that starts here, transmitting a signal to here, which pumps power to here, transmitting a signal back here, which activates the piston. So, in theory, if I flip this lever, this gets sent way over there and then back here and activates that piston. Now, if this was any normal thing, that chunk way over there would not be loaded. So this is not in a loaded chunk. And I'm not using world anchors or dimensional anchors at all. But if I flip the switch, it activates the piston. As we can see, these are on two different frequencies. This is on frequency 100, this is on frequency 101. So this one is not accidentally activating that one. Now, if we quit the game and come back, we get an interesting side effect. Alright, now we're back in this world. And if we flip the switch, nothing happens. What we have to do is run way down here so that the chunk loads, and then when we get all the way back here, it works. So it's not that the chunk has to be loaded at all times for this to work. It just has to have been loaded at least once. So if you are on a server, and yes, I tested this does work on a server. If you're on a server that shuts down at night, or reboots itself at night, which from what I understand, most do, you'd have to reinitialize the chunk every time it loads, unless you're using a world anchor or dimensional anchor. Now, another little interesting device that goes along with these things is the wireless jammer. And basically it does pretty much what's labeled on the box. Shoots out red lightning, and when it discovers... Ow. Yeah, red painful lighting, by the way. And when it discovers an active wireless redstone signal, it jams it. It breaks it. Ow. Now, you can give it a redstone signal to disable the jammer, but the second you turn it on, it re-enables the jammer. Now, even if I pop the jammer, it doesn't instantly re-enable these two. It actually takes a little bit of time for them to fix themselves, I guess you could say. Not terribly, terribly long, but long enough to really annoy somebody if you want to jam their wireless. But as you notice, I didn't set it to a frequency. Ow. And it does affect multiple frequencies. So it affected both the 101 and the 100. And it keeps attacking me, and I don't know why. Now, how far does it jam? Well, let's find out. I have this line of just wireless transmitters set up. And I'm going to put the wireless jammer here and see how far it can jam. So we got 2 blocks, we got 4, 6, 8, so on and so forth up until 14. Well, that took out the number 8 block. And apparently there seems to be a little load time. Ah, maybe not, because it just killed a whole bunch of them all at once. I thought there was a charge time on it, but that appears to not be the case. Yeah, it seems to go to 8 blocks and that's it. I was just curious if flipping the switch re-enabled it, but no. See if we can take out block number 9. It took out block number 8. Let's see if we can take out block number 9. Doesn't look like it. So it looks like a radius of 8 blocks. Oh, nope. It just took out number 9. So radius of 9 blocks? Or will it take out number 10? Nope, I would say that is a no. It's just 9 blocks away that it will take care of. Which makes it use somewhat limited, but it would have to be limited so you know where everything is and it doesn't kill everything in sight. This cute little device here is called a randomizer. And basically its purpose is that when it gets power into its input side, it randomly activates these 3 wires. So just, it'll randomly turn them off, turn them on. Yeah. And here, I'll show you. Okay, now we saw that it activated that one. Now it activated all 3. Now it deactivated that one. And it's definitely random. But if we leave the redstone signal on, so this is probably something that's more designed to be used with a button, which we can test here. We throw that down, we put the button there, and we have to run the cable up because it wouldn't attach to the block elsewhere. But you see we have a problem there. It runs through 4 cycles. So this is probably a situation where you would use a pulse former. And I showed you that in the last episode. And basically all that does is that when it gets power, it just sends a quick pulse out the other side. So just, and then it just runs through 1 cycle of what it does. Now you would think that this would have right-click options, that it would only run one at a time or something like that, but there is no right-click options, not even if you use the screwdriver. Yeah, nothing happens. That's all we can do is just rotate it around. So it's true random, not pseudo-random, which means that any one of these three can randomly change their on-off state. Now, this lovely thing is one of my new favorite toys now that I figured out how to use it. It's called a Transparent Latch. And basically what it does is when you flip the activation switch, nothing happens until you flip this switch. Now, nothing happened with the pistons, but something did happen here. It activated this redstone torch. And now when we flip the switch, now it works. So basically what it is it's kind of like a locking mechanism. The latch can only change if this input is activated. So it's kind of like a deadbolt on a door. So say this is your lever for opening and closing your door. You flip that switch, and now your door is locked. Of course, that also means now your door is locked open. So this is a sequencer, and it pretty much does what its name would suggest. It turns things on in sequence. And that is based on a timer that you can access by right-clicking on it. And you can change via seconds and milliseconds. So say we want to increase it to 6 seconds, or even better, up to 60 seconds, and it does a rotation once a minute. So it's kind of like a clock. Yep, there you go. You have yourself a built-in clock. Pretty badass, isn't it? This is a counter, and it does pretty much what you would expect it to do. It's got two inputs, a positive side and a negative side. This one here is the positive, this one here is the negative. And it's got two outputs. This one is 0, and this one is whatever you set the max number to. Now, these settings can be accessed by right-clicking on it, and we have the max number, which is how many counts you want to do, how many pulses you want to do. The default is 10, so I pretty much leave it at 10. And as we increase, it counts up. And once it gets up to 10, it activates the other side. Now, decreasing works the same exact way. We have to decrease by 10 for it to reset. Or, what you can do is decrement it by 10. That way, when you count up, it can instantly be reset. This is a timer, and it works shockingly like a sequencer, except it outputs 3 sides at one time after a predetermined interval. So right now, after 8 seconds, it activates a quick pulse to the 3 output sides. This one also has an input side, which once you activate it, it stops the counter. And then deactivated, the counter restarts itself. I use this in combination with Railcraft's blast furnace and the pneumatic tubes, which I'll go over in another episode once I get that all sorted out, to keep the blast furnace full of coal so I don't have to be filling it with coal over and over and over again. This is an RS latch, and it's got 2 input sides and 2 output sides. Now these input sides are related to which side the output is. So if I activate a signal here, it switches the output. If I activate it here, it switches it again. Which begs the question, what if I do this? It disables it completely. To be completely honest with you, I can't think up a use for this thing. But that's what it does. I'm assuming it's designed more to be used with buttons and not levers, since buttons automatically turn themselves off. So yeah, I would assume that that's what it's for. It's for buttons. Possibly something like a 4-way switch, but not really. You know, I don't know. This is a state cell. Now, I may be wrong about this. I believe this is like a cell in in computer memory. At least that's what I heard. I never did fully understand computer memory and how it works, but I think that's what this is. I think that's what a state cell does. And basically what it does is it's got 2 input sides and 2 output sides. When you activate the input side, the first input side, it activates this one and then counts down and then activates that one and disables both. And you can right-click on it and change how long that is. So if we do that, it takes longer to get to the second phase. Now, what you can do is activate this input, then you activate this one, it powers this one and stays powered, and then this will hold its countdown until this signal is released. Now, again, I may be mistaken, but I think if you line a whole bunch of them up together, you get memory storage, like computer storage. But, like, again, I can't say for sure because I never understood that kind of stuff. This is a Null Cell, and all it does is a way to send redstone across the same block without interfering. So, like, I can activate this switch, and it activates that piston, but not the other piston. And the same can be said on this side. I activate this switch, it activates that piston, but not that piston. And that's its entire purpose. It's designed so that you can cross 2 wires without them interfering, and without them taking up more than 1 block. So it's a space saver trick. Now this one is a non-invert cell, and it's got an interesting little trick. If you flip this lever, the one that goes up and over, it activates that piston, but not that piston. Whereas if you activate this lever, it activates both. As you can see inside it why. That redstone torch is activated, but it's not underneath that block. But when that redstone torch activates, it is underneath that block, thus activating the cable on top of it. This is an invert cell, and basically it's the exact opposite of the non-invert cell. What it does is it inverts what's on the bottom. So this is off right now, so the top is on. So when I turn on the bottom, it turns off the top. Now you can also flip this lever and activate that piston as well, completely unrelated to the bottom. This is a multiplexer. Basically, this input side determines whether this input side or this input side will affect this output side. So if I have this lever off, I flick this lever, nothing happens, but if I flick this lever, the piston goes up. I turn this lever on, I flick it, this lever activates the piston, but this lever doesn't. This is a synchronizer. Basically, it's got two main inputs, this input and that input. When you give power to the first input, it activates this little light right there. And then when you activate the second input, it activates the second light and then sends a pulse down the output side. Now, the third input, once activated, disables the entire thing. This is a buffer gate, and it kind of confuses me. According to the wiki, well, according to the recipe list, I should say, not the wiki, the three output sides, this side, and this side, are active when the input side is active. So if I flip the lever, all three turn on, and I flip the lever back, all three turn off. That's all the recipe list says. And it kind of confuses me, because why would you need to do that when you could just do that? Same thing. Now this does have an extra thing that's not pointed out in the recipe list. If you shift right click with the screwdriver, it will disable the inputs on either side. That one, or both. But that seems to be it. That seems to be its entire purpose in life. I guess it's for those kind of circuits where you have a bunch of these types of blocks all lined up. It's like a three-way diode. Signal goes out and then splits off in three directions, but signal cannot come back in to interfere with the other two. Okay, so I think I figured out its purpose. I just personally can't think of a use for it. But again, that's a limitation on my part, not on a limitation of the item itself. I can definitely see it has value, I just can't think of any. And well, hey, that's it for the circuits. It was complicated, a little confusing, I can definitely understand that, but it was educational for me, and I hope for you as well, and quite cool. I got a few ideas myself just from doing this video, or these videos, I should say, 2 of them. I hope you did too, and in fact, if you do, throw them up in the comments, or even better, record it yourself and post it as a video response. That would be amazing. I love seeing what other people think of. So, I will see you guys in the next episode, whatever that may end up being. Have fun!